So I'm Sean Glaze. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm wearing two hats today. I'm saying it twice for those of you on Zoom. I'm saying it once for those of you on social who've just joined us. Thank you. And one hat I wear is with Inclusive Data. We are a consulting firm that has gotten over $18 million in grants for Black small businesses and Black nonprofits, and I'm super excited to teach Black folks how to do what we do. You're also joining me from another hat. What's my other hat, y'all? My other hat is, with Black Brilliance Research Project, which is a research project that has over 100 community members working together to create equity solutions for our communities. And so that means that we get to build the things we need to survive and thrive. I'm super excited about that. On this last week, we have talked to well over 500 people about this opportunity. Shout out to all of you who are watching today on our very last day, because today is the day that public comment is due. So if you have not left your public comment, do not worry, because remember, we have prepared a guide to be able to help you. Copy-paste template that you can use and tweak and edit and make sure that it reflects what you think is important. I really focused on highlighting things that are a high impact to our communities, to our Black communities especially. So we want to make sure that you have that at your disposal. Today, I will go over some of the key points of our template that we created, so that y'all can have that, and we can talk through it. If you are joining on social media, if you can do me a favor and let me know what you're watching, where you're watching from, that would be great. We have North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas here on the Zoom. Hi, Zoom. We also have people who are watching from different states on social media. Okay, cool. Be coming back to watch the replay. Sweet. If you are coming back to watch the replay, I will tell you, today's the last day, which means you cannot wait. You need to prioritize this before you forget about it. Make sure you are setting a reminder on your calendars so that this is all done. I really want to encourage y'all to get this in before 5 p.m. Eastern time, because that was the original deadline. The new deadline, however, is 11:59 p.m. What I've noticed is that when people have an 11:59 deadline, they often miss it because they think that they'll come back to it later, after dinner, after the kids are asleep, once you had a time to relax. But many of you are going to have a hard Friday, okay? You're going to be so tired and you'll forget. So go ahead and make it a priority right now. What I am going to do is share my screen and go through the comments that we have prepared to help y'all as you're applying for, as you are providing comments on this opportunity. The link that I've dropped in the chat, the link that I have dropped in social media, the link that we have prepared, all of this stuff, these links, y'all, will provide you not just with the language that we're using, but also the link to submit public comment. Looks like we have a new bit.ly, so I'm going to go ahead and pop that baby up. It is going to be, let me just double check that it works. Yes, it does. It is bit.ly/NTIA comment, all lowercase. bit.ly/NTIA comment, all lowercase. I am also glad they extended the deadline, Katina, because it's really hard to put together materials, right? And y'all have been working on this for a minute. Make sure that y'all are going to this link that I am going to put here, bit.ly/NTIA comment, so that you can have what you need. I love getting y'all templates. Sound glitched, and now you can't hear me. That's odd. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, it's back. Wonderful. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's go ahead and get this party started. Sharing screen. So what we have done together, that you can now see on the Zoom, and for those of you who are joining via StreamYard, give me a second. Let me share my screen. I'm going to share which screen? I'm going to share this little tab. Love how I say that. Tab. Okay, great. Here we go. So we're all here. So please submit your comment tonight. Ideally before 5 p.m. Eastern time. There are $48 billion on the line, and the funder wants to know how should they spend it. Let's go ahead and tell them. I've been creating videos, including this one here that's live about the opportunity, so you can check those out. But today I'm going to run through our recommendations. You can copy and paste this template and then just edit it based on what you think is important. There's even a spot that says optional, insert your digital equity story here. What I would do is I would go up to file, make a copy, and I would work from that copy so that you can delete the stuff at the top and like add your little add whatever you want to add, make sure everything else looks good, save, and upload it to their system. You can even copy all of it, just like copy, all the stuff that you want to copy, paste it into their system, call it a day. So we try to make it really easy for y'all. I've been thinking about this for months, and I've been talking to community members for quite some time. I have over 2 years of experience talking to what are called underserved communities, but certainly Black and Brown communities, especially Black communities, about what we need to thrive in this digital world that we're in. So it is that plus this that informs these recommendations. There are a lot of other folks who've been writing recommendations that I really support and love. And so I don't want you to think that this is the be all end all, but I do want you to know, like, this is what we've come up with so far. Number one, we do think it is absolutely important to be thinking about digital justice and digital equity. Digital equity is about like making sure that, different communities have about the same amount of access to devices, to the internet, to the skills, to what we need, in order to get online and in order to create jobs that help people get online. That's great. Digital equity is important. Digital justice is like a next level, right? The next step. It's making sure we have everything we need to thrive in this new world. And so we want to make sure that we're thinking about both of those things. Number one, so we are really pushing this funder to fund opportunities to create digital justice, and specifically prioritize Black communities and intersectional identities. What does intersectional identities mean, y'all? It is being able to account for the fact that a lot of us meet more than one criteria. A lot of funders, when they're putting out their criteria, they're like, we want to reach low income people with disabilities, we want to reach Black and Brown people, we want to reach rural people. But a lot of us have multiple identities, multiple categories apply to us. So really focusing on Black communities and people for whom multiple categories apply, like Black women with disabilities, Black women broadly, right? Just really thinking about that intersection. That's important because a lot of times when you focus on just one category at a time, it's the same groups of people who keep getting left out. Just like when we saw people prioritizing funding Black businesses, Black women businesses weren't suddenly super funded. And when people focused on funding women businesses, Black women weren't super funded. It is because a lot of times these policies, these practices, these strategies aren't effective unless you focus on that intersection, right? And so that's what this is about. One thing that I want to highlight for y'all is that we are talking about specific communities within this that we're holding up, like our rural Black community members and our community members in urban unincorporated counties, our areas of urban unincorporated areas of counties, our Black elders. We need to be thinking also about people who've been displaced, gentrified, right, out of our areas. We need the funding to follow us so that we're not overfunding areas that aren't actually hitting underserved communities. Number two, we have been advocating strongly for our communities, underserved communities, right, to be represented in decision-making, meaningful ways. So yes, that includes funding the creation of different digital equity forums or work groups or bodies of people who are able to be paid to represent their communities and to have these bodies be represented by us so that it is by us, for us, with us. because we know that underserved communities, that's what the funders usually call communities like ours. We know that our communities need to be at the decision-making table in ways that aren't tokenizing. It's not good enough to have just a couple of us at the table. The table really needs to be set with all of us. And so what we need is for there to be funds and encouragement from this funder to create and execute this strategy. We also need to make it really clear that communities should be driving these investments. One key thing that we're so passionate about is creating participatory budgeting models or participatory grant making models. And that really just means that we, the people who are most impacted by this, we should decide where these investments go. So we should be the ones that are setting eligibility criteria. We should be the ones voting on what would actually serve our communities. And the things that community knows will work should be the things that get funded. We can't rely on people who are so far removed from the problem to know like what a successful, grant application would mean for the impact in our communities. We need to be leading those decisions. And thankfully, we have so many different models across the United States of what it looks like when you use participatory budgeting and participatory grant making to make decisions. We're also pushing for the research and evaluation component because we know there's going to be data, right? There's going to be all kinds of data collected and used to make decisions. We need to have our communities not just at the table, like answering focus group questions or filling out surveys. We need to be leading that. So we need to have researchers who are us at the table saying, here's the questions that we really need to know to be successful. Here are the things that we really need to analyze in order to make a difference in our communities. And that approach has a name. This approach of really highlighting community expertise, of saying like those closest to the issues are closest to the solutions, it is called participatory action research. And that phrase is something that a lot of people in digital equity are becoming more and more familiar with. This is important, that communities that have the expertise be recognized and paid for that expertise, and that expertise be used to develop out whatever planning, whatever implementation that happens. This is what we're advocating for in our comments in several places, but definitely something I want to uplift for this conversation today. We're also advocating that anyone that gets funded from these dollars, whether that's the NTIA directly, that's the funder, or someone that they give money to, or someone that they give money to, or someone that they then give money to, right? They should be providing technical assistance and capacity building for underserved communities so that we can lead, so that we can really drive where these investments go. That means that we should see technical assistance and capacity building being provided. Things like project management support, grant writing support. We could say, hey, funder, we need for y'all to be providing underserved communities with grant writers who can review proposals or help with proposal development, or even write grants on behalf of the community. These are things that funders can do, and that they can push their sub-awardees and their contractors, et cetera, to do. And that's what we really need to see. We need to see some support to translate this very technical language into language our communities can understand. So that's really important, to be able to understand these investments that are affecting your lives, to know like, hey, I can call up this person and they can explain to me what 100 symmetrical, like 100 symmetrical means, or 100. Like, is that good? Is that bad? Do I want that? Do I not? Like, can you tell me what this is and what it means for my life? We need communications folks and technical folks who are able to clarify those terms and to do that translation, and to increase the digital skills of potential applicants so that we can be successful. We also know, of course, we need jobs. Of course, that's part of this opportunity, but we need like wraparound support. We need things like childcare, in some cases, case management. We need to be able to be fully supported to really take advantage of these jobs. We can't just hope that people will somehow have everything they need to be able to take advantage of this opportunity unless we're equipping them with the specific tools and guidance and support. And we also know that part of that looks like increasing language access, right? Translations. We know that at least 10% of all immigrants and refugees are Black folks, and that a lot of times our languages are not prioritized when it comes to these grant applications. We need things to be accessible to our communities. We need it to be in languages we can understand, whether that is English or other languages. We need to make sure that people can actually take advantage of this opportunity. I'm going to pause for a second here and check in with y'all. How are y'all doing? Does this sound good? Is this resonating with you? I'm just wondering. Okay, Larisha says this is awesome. Great. Radia says, thank you for the template. I submitted my input yesterday. You rock. Oh, thank you. Yes. Awesome. Okay. I'm so happy that this is really resonating with y'all on social media. And how are y'all doing in the Zoom? Let me know. Is this helpful to y'all as well? Having this live training? Okay, Britannia says, yes, indeed. Okay, Mosley says, you're winning me over. Wonderful. Let's keep talking. This is so important to be able to really dig in and say, this is what we need to see. This is what community is advocating for, and this is what's going to make a difference. This technical assistance capacity building component, y'all, we could be saying we need policy navigators, or at least really good communication materials who can help translate what community is saying we need, these concerns we have, and direct us to the responsible party, the appropriate party. Y'all, as someone who has written federal, state, local grants, corporate grants, philanthropic grants, right? Our team has gotten over $18 million in grants. And before this, and still now, I've been doing research for so many different levels of government. And a lot of times government people think we can tell their departments apart. Like, I promise. Like, there really is this idea that we, the public, keep track of all the different departments and what they do and who's responsible for what. If you are someone that keeps track of all the departments and you know exactly where to go, hats off to you. I am so thrilled. But what I have found is a lot of us don't know. Like, what's the difference between the NTIA and the FCC? Really? Like, what's the difference? A lot of community members wonder things like that when they're told, oh, I'm sorry, that's not us, that's the FCC. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not us, that's the NTIA. Or I'm sorry, that's not us, that's like Department of Commerce. Right? And we need people to help us navigate this because the funding is different. The rules are different. The responsibilities are different. And we need someone who can help make sure that when we have an issue, it can be clear who's going to resolve it, because it's really exhausting to be passed from person to person to person when you're trying to get help. When you have the ability to access technical assistance and you're not able to get someone to help walk you through it, it's really hard to be able to have a successful outcome. So we need policy navigators for that. We also need there to be, in terms of technical assistance and capacity building, more support to help us think about e-waste. Now, e-waste is not the most exciting topic, but I tell you what, like, we have all these freaking devices that are already out. Just 2 days ago, my phone is practically dead. Like, it doesn't work. And I'm sure I could take it to a refurbisher to be able to repair it and then resell it. But what is my provider going to do? My provider is going to sell me a new phone, right? They're going to be like, have a new phone. Similarly, we have all these different devices. We have all of these different, computers that maybe they're obsolete. They don't work anymore. They're broken. Well, we can't just be throwing stuff away all the time. In fact, there are new jobs that can be created around this so that we are not just recycling and like reusing, but we are able to repair things. We're able to fix them, and we're able to create solutions that repeat time and time again. But we can't do that unless our communities know like about these as options and be able to provide technical assistance, capacity building, so that we can understand how to mitigate and eliminate that waste and really understand that landscape, the better, because that means less waste, less environmental impacts, and more jobs for our community while creating more devices locally so that we don't run into those supply chain issues again. A lot of us saw those shipping containers, right? Shipping containers just piling up on the dock. So we need to make sure that we are prepared in there, as well as, and this is key, a lot of y'all who've been talking to us, you have some pretty serious financial chops, right? We've got some Black CPAs that have been talking to us, some accounting professionals, bookkeepers, right? And a lot of y'all know, and you know what a lot of us grant writers know, which is that sometimes these big funders, they don't give money to our communities because they say we don't have the capacity, right? They say that we don't have like the proper bookkeeping, protocols in place, internal controls. There are words that people use to say basically these communities don't know what they're doing and they can't manage money, and so we can't give them anything. And we can't have that be the story always. Funders have a responsibility here too. They have options. They can provide technical assistance and capacity building that helps us gain any financial controls that we would need, that helps us understand what those controls are and how to negotiate for our indirect rates so that we can cover more of our overhead, so that we can hire on more staff to help us maintain those internal controls. If this sounds like something that you would benefit from your community, please let me know in the chat. I would love to make sure that this is like resonating with y'all, because these are the things that I've seen time and time again, keep our communities out of access to resources, especially robust ones. Awesome. Okay, cool. So someone just asked if we know how many comments have been submitted so far. Awesome. And someone's like, I need this kind of thing in my community. Excellent. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I'm realizing it's real hard for some of y'all to see. There have been over 80 comments left. When we started, there were only about 12 comments. And so a lot of y'all have been doing hard work to do public comment in time. Thank you. Let's go ahead and keep going. The other thing that we're advocating for is to make it easier for people to receive support. A lot of these programs that pop up that allow you to get access to free or low-cost internet, or faster internet, or more reliable internet, or the kinds of jobs we know our communities need, they have all of these different eligibility criteria. You have to spend like hours of your life finding and then applying for these things and then waiting. So what we push for just broadly are some key ways to make it easier for people to get auto-enrolled. Like if someone needs help with food or childcare, they probably need help with internet, right? So making it sure that we are picking criteria that are expansive so that we're not like leaving so many people out who've been left out time and time again. I know that when I was growing up, my family, we often had moments where my family, my mom was really worried about us making quote unquote too much money, right? So that like we would be in this weird kind of limbo space where we weren't quite poor enough then to get the support that we would need to maintain the support that we had, like the ability to pay for rental assistance and things like that, food stamps, what have you. But then if she was worried that if we weren't quite poor enough for that, but then we were too poor for like being able to actually afford stuff. And so she was really worried about that. And what that would mean is people are often stuck in this like weird space where you can give them great freaking jobs, but like if they lose all of their supports before the great jobs kick in at the level they need to be kicked in, then that doesn't help in the same ways you would think it would. So being able to have categories that make it easier for people to receive support actually makes it easier for them to need less support. And so we really want to push for that. Funding should create community-led educational opportunities outside of traditional routes of education too, right? Of course, we need to be able to have traditional education routes, but we also need community-led routes as well. So we need things like digital stewards who are community members who build and maintain the internet. They also help with making sure people can actually use it. And it's great because these are community jobs, y'all, that we help each other learn how to create what we need. We also need digital navigators. They help people get connected to resources like the Affordable Connectivity Program, which allows you to be able to, if you're eligible, get cheaper, internet, more affordable internet. That's great. And so we need to, digital navigators also help with other things like devices and various other things. But more importantly, we need all of these different kinds of solutions so that we can create a healthy world where we can thrive. We need support around creating jobs and creating opportunities, educational opportunities related to information literacy, digital literacy, privacy, education, security. We need to be able to be safe online, and these community-led efforts are the best way to reach communities that have been left out from these efforts. And so that's a big piece, whether that's homeschoolers or community-led teach-ins, zines or community media, hands-on experiences like maker spaces and community organizing, right? We have so many ways that we take care of each other and educate each other. Those are things that should be accounted for too, instead of just traditional routes of funding education. Now, one area that I know a lot of y'all care about, I'm just going to go back up, jobs, and jobs. Listen, this opportunity should create jobs that are living wage, that build and maintain community-owned infrastructure, and that support the skills training programs and opportunities we know will really benefit our communities. We need to make it clear that these jobs, even though they may not necessarily even though this may not necessarily be obvious to the funder, to us, these jobs would include jobs that people don't usually think about as tech jobs. So project management, right? That hands-on labor jobs, the pre-apprenticeship programs, the formal and informal ones, the opportunities to really tap into these roles that would support this infrastructure existing. You can't have a successful large-scale project without a project manager, or two, or three, or 50, right? You need people who are able to keep things on task, on scope, on budget, who can manage relationships. And so those are the kind of jobs we want to see as well. We also know that there's so many jobs out there that are able to be supported by additional funding sources, whether that's WIOA or TANF or SNAP, right? All these different funding sources. So we need to be creating ways that allow for flexibility so that if we're creating jobs for folks who have these other supports, that we're able to add on those wraparound services. So that's really important. There are other components here. I think the ones that I'm really going to highlight for y'all is this idea that we create ways for us to fund the solutions that we're generating as we build internet infrastructure, whether that is tools to combat misinformation and disinformation, when people lie about our communities or mislead us about our access to voting or access to education or access to healthcare. There are bad actors out there who are really targeting our communities and who are trying to steal our information, who are trying to steal our passwords, right? Who are trying to take advantage of our work or steal it or rip it off. And we need there to be ways in which we are creating jobs that counter that. And this funding source could be an important component of that. We also know that we need policies that make it easier to reach people, for small businesses to be able to hire them. And so we have a lot of details here about how important it is to be able to create funding and supports so that small businesses can hire people, whether that is by training community members to be able to use the internet to apply for jobs and do remote work, or it is making it easier for us small businesses to find people for our businesses without necessarily being overly reliant on technology. Because if we're overly reliant on technology, whether that is, websites like, Fiverr or Upwork or any of these things, it's like if we were too reliant on that, we will miss people in our own communities across the street who are looking for these kind of opportunities to work for us, but who don't have access yet to the internet, to the skills, to the ability to get these devices. And we know that we can't have that if we're trying to create strong, local, robust economies. Finally, on this topic of jobs, I'm trying to think of something I haven't focused on already. I think just generally we want to support community-led workforce development programs that are led by a community, where we are really creating training, broadening it up to include privacy, security, and surveillance. I would love to be able to see more small businesses that are part of our communities that are talking about the unique considerations for surveillance. Surveillance is something that a lot of us aren't even aware of all the time, that we're being followed along, and as we're online and leaving, data here and data there. It's also something that we may not realize are being targeted by actors in order to, follow us. And we don't need that. What we need is someone who can help us navigate that to stay safe and protect our information. And I would love to see our communities creating solutions for each other that way. We have pushed really hard on the state digital equity plans because these plans are going to be part of how we understand the success of this funding. And we are adamant that unserved and underserved communities are supported to define and measure the success of this funding and of the programs that are created through it. And so here we have a lot of details about what we are looking for there, but we want to make sure that there are specific things that happen, that yes, our input is solicited, but more importantly, that we're leading at the table, and that yes, we are being careful about our use of data, and we are following the best practices that our own communities have said is important to make sure that we're accurately captured. There are so many places where our community is left out of data sets, whether that is because we have members that are incarcerated, or we have members that are part of indigenous communities, whether it's because we are part of communities that are deemed like too small to count. These are the things that really keep us from getting the resources we need. Additionally, so many decisions get made on official census data, which is useful to some extent, but we also know that there's systematic undercounting of our communities, which means we need more resources, but the dollars don't get there because of the undercounting. And not everyone has, Kay Patrice on their team, who her team was able to get 99.7% census completion in her neighborhood, in her area that they serve. It wasn't just one neighborhood. That's amazing. And I will never forget that. But we know that a lot of times that's not the story for Black and Brown communities. And so please make sure that as we push for things like digital equity plans, we are pushing to make sure that our communities are visible and are leading the charge in finding and evaluating success. Almost at the end, data dashboards. Of course I care about data, whether it's because, of course I'm with Inclusive Data, I'm with Black Brilliance Research Project, but it's also so important to how decisions get made. And so we are interested in making sure that this funder really takes the time to invest in things like a digital census, where we can find out where exactly are these things, like where are all the devices going, where are that skills going, where's that skills training at, right? Where's that internet access being placed? Where is that adoption happening? Where are the relevant advocacy concerns and where are the jobs? We need to be able to do some temperature checks like that, because if we don't measure this, if we don't track this, we're going to run into a situation where they're like, we spent $48 billion. You'd be like, great, how many Black communities were helped? And they'd be like, I don't know, right? And we can't have that. And so a lot of what we've outlined here has been about like avoiding that outcome and making it easier to see what that success looks like. And importantly, making it easier to see where there should be consequences. Because if we measure things and we don't associate some carrots and some sticks with that data, nothing will happen. And so we can't have that. And then lastly, accountability. Local town halls is what we're pushing for. Local town halls that allow community members to design, seek, and evaluate accountability. It's not enough to report out data. I can tell you that as someone who's served in a consultant role, as a research consultant for so many different jurisdictions, so many different states, so many different counties, so many different cities, right? I've worked with so many government actors, and I even have a couple projects with the National Science Foundation. And I'll tell you this, it's not enough to report out. There has to be some type of process, something that allows community to give feedback and to require some type of follow-up. If there is no accountability, then there will not be the success we need to get people online right now and to get us into the jobs we deserve. And so if there are structural issues, things like you have these gaps and they get worse over time, then there should be a clear mechanism to allow to solve for that. Whether that is saying, hey, multi-year awardee, I know we said we were going to give you this 3-year grant, but that was contingent on you actually serving the community. And based on these data, things are worse now than they were before. Let's pause and figure out a new strategy. We need things like that to be put in place, because if they aren't, then it's really difficult to create that accountability after the fact. So we have some concrete ideas here of what this looks like. And I will tell you, one of my favorites is participatory budgeting. Being able to create a mechanism where the community itself redistributes those funds towards creating the type of access, the adoption, the use of reliable internet, fast internet, affordable internet, an internet that creates these jobs. This is something that underserved communities understand very well. And I would love to see more of this happening in community, because when community sets the priorities, things get directed where they need to go. We don't see projects get funded that have no relevance to community anymore when we have community at the driver's seat. And with that said, I'll stop sharing my screen. Okay, so we're stopped on Zoom. We are stopped on social media. Let's talk, y'all. Let's talk. I would love to see how y'all are doing. Let's see. Awesome. So Larisha says, thank you. Yes, make accessing money simple. That is what it is about. We see, let's see, we have Scopy says, benefits cliff. Yes, that's definitely something that we're concerned about. Creating benefits cliff, where it's like you have like something that works as long as you stay below here. Don't make too much money or else you're going to be worse off. Like you don't want to create that. Absolutely. So thank you for that. Okay, Katina says, I've shared this with many others. Thank you. Thanks for walking through this. I need this. Katina says, I've reached out to our city council members and mayor as they weren't aware of this opportunity to provide public comment. I encourage others to do this as well. A great way to begin and nurture these relationships. Oh my gosh, Katina, you are speaking my language. This is so important. This right here. I'm gonna move my head up a little bit for those of you who can't see it anymore because we're on the social media. This right here. It is a great idea for y'all to be talking to your elected officials about this. Why? Because a lot of times your elected officials don't know about opportunities like this until maybe it's too late. And by then they can't do much. But an elected official saying like, hey, my community really needs and deserves these supports. And hey, this is what we need to see. That's huge. And you get to build relationships where they start associating you with someone that knows about great opportunities to create investments in communities. So yeah, 100% Katina, that's the name of the game. I see a couple of other questions. And so Julie says, submitted. Yes. Love to hear it. Larisha says, we definitely need benchmark check-ins to ensure that money goes where it's promised for sure. Yes. A lot of us, we have lived the horror stories of what happens when the investments come and they're supposed to hit our communities. They're supposed to actually serve our children and our elders and like the people who are most vulnerable. They're supposed to go to our people with disabilities. They're supposed to go to our Black and brown communities. And then you're like, where'd it go? They're like, oh, it's spent already. And you're like, well, did it go where it was supposed to go? Because I didn't see it and none of my community members did. And they're just like, sorry, I don't know. We can't have that story happen this time. It's $48 billion on the line. I've been sharing as well, says Xavier. Yes. Y'all make me happy. Okay, cool. I have a few minutes to take a couple of questions before we close out. One question I see is from Martin. How can we establish research groups in cities? If you have a community-led effort that you want to turn into a research group, I will tell you the best place to follow, because I am always down to support, is Black Brilliance Research Project, because that's what we do. We just finished a Digital Equity Action Research Fellowship in 6 cities across the United States, where we, in partnership with Simmons University and Benton Institute for Broadband and Society, trained some fellows on how to do research and do work. It is not difficult to establish research groups in cities or in rural areas. It's just something we don't usually know that we can do. It's not something that our communities usually realize we have access to. There are a few people who are watching now who participated in research groups, research circles, where community members define the priorities, do the analysis, collect the data, right? Do the analysis, report it out, and create change. One of the things that Black Brilliance Research Project has done is we brought together several different community organizations, community members, over 100 community members, and we designed a new way of redistributing funds. We said, like, hey, we have seen a lot of money go towards hurting Black and brown people, especially Black and Indigenous people. We need to do something else. We need a different path, and we need to be the ones designing it. And so we came together. We created several different projects. We wrote a report. We submitted this report. It is being implemented this year to the tune of $30 million. And it's designed to repeat year after year after year based on the priorities of communities that have been most harmed by structural violence and underinvestment. Following the leadership of these same communities, that's a big deal. And y'all could do that too. We wrote up how we did it. It was like a whole situation. So if that is something that you are interested in, again, you want to tap into Black Brilliance Research Project, link below. I'll also put it in the Zoom so y'all can have it, because I'm realizing y'all can't see it if you're not on the StreamYard. So I'm going to put it in 2 places. Thanks for your question, Martin. Can you post the link for the comments? I want to forward it to a few people. Yes, so I will post the link for the comments that we have created here. So I'm going to do this here. And then I'm also going to do it on social media here. And then we will go ahead and remind y'all. So thank you for those of you who have submitted public comment. We have prepared a draft to make it easier for people who haven't submitted yet. Like Katina said, being able to reach out to your elected officials, being able to reach out to your community members is a great way to build relationships while amplifying the impact of your actions as you are telling this funder what's important to you. So thank you so much for doing that. I will take any last lingering questions before we close out. Once we close, those of you who are here on the Zoom with me, I will be sending you the recording once it finishes processing, and it'll have essentially the link to public comment. And so at the top, the document we were looking at together with all the details, at the top, you'll see a link to what will be this video now, where we kind of go through the overall takeaways. Please feel free to forward it to folks that you think need it. For those of you that are on social media, the link that I just dropped into the chat, which hopefully is posting to all the destinations, but if not, you can go to bit.ly/NTIA comment, this one, to find it. That document at the very top has a link to video where I kind of walk through stuff. I'm going to update it once the Zoom is done processing, so you have this too. So please forward it to people that you love and care about and want to support getting more internet access, more devices, more jobs into our community. Super excited about the jobs part, because there's nothing like hiring community members to create our own solutions. All right. With that said, let me see if there's any more housekeeping things. I know someone had asked about our challenge. I think this is probably a good time for me to just briefly mention. We do have next week our Black Wealth Challenge. It is free. It is for Black folks to talk to other Black folks and for us to build relationships with each other. If it is helpful for you to be able to talk to people about opportunities like this, tap into our Black Wealth Challenge at blackwealthchallenge.com. Our last challenge, we generated over $100,000 in unadvertised funding for Black folks. It was awesome. I want to do it again. And so make sure you're sharing with the Black people you love. And of course, just like last time, we'll have a success kit. It's a different success kit. Last success kit, very focused on getting people funded in like 4 weeks or less. This success kit, more focused on relationships, being able to talk about how our relationship style can be leveraged to get dollars. And so if that sounds like something you're interested in, it could be a couple relationship. We'll also be talking about elders and youth, family-owned businesses. Like there's a lot of really juicy things in there. And we'll continue adding up until the challenge. Lastly, I just want to express deep appreciation to y'all for hanging on this long. It has been a long week and a half, but it has been so worth it to see y'all taking action, sharing with your community, and doing what we can to create what we need to thrive. So thank you so much. This time I'm going to close out the Zoom first so we can start processing that video and I can get you this recording. So thank you. I'm hoping to see y'all again at the challenge for those of you who are planning to go. And then for the rest of you, I'm hoping I'll be seeing you on social media, whether that is at Inclusive Data on all the social medias or Black Brilliance Research for the rest of the social medias. Take good care, y'all, on Zoom. Closing this out in 3. You're welcome. Yes, of course. 2, 1. Awesome. And those of you on social media, once this Zoom is done processing, I will be adding it to the top of that link. And so that link again is bit.ly/NTA comment, all lowercase. Awesome. Thanks so much. Please get your comments in today, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.